LauraGyoga, and today we're going to be moving from the yamas into the niyamas. So the niyamas are observances that we are expected to follow as yogis, but they pertain more toward our personal care or our inner state, as opposed to the yamas, which are more about how we conduct ourselves in our external world. So the first of the niyamas that we're going to talk about is Saucha. And Saucha is about cleanliness. It's about self-care and making sure that you keep yourself in this space of purity and mentally keep yourself in a state of clarity so that you have that space in between your thought. You can give more attention to the important thoughts, and you don't feel like you're constantly cluttered or feeling frazzled. So just like the other yamas and the niyamas, there's layers to Saucha. And we think about initially cleanliness of keeping our body clean, of bathing and showering and making sure that we take care of our physical needs, brushing our teeth, washing our face, washing our hair, all those kind of things. And that's an important aspect of this practice. But what I told my students this week is to recognize the difference between habit and ritual. So habit is something that we do every morning because it's what we always do, and we're just used to that pattern. We don't do it particularly mindfully. It's sort of an automatic thing that just happens. You wake up, you go into the bathroom, you're brushing your teeth, you're washing your face, you're already thinking about your day probably. Whereas when we practice Saucha and we're trying to carry out our cleanliness ritual, the act of taking a shower or taking a bath might be something where you practice extreme mindfulness, and you're practicing this attitude of self-care, of doing that act from a place of taking really good care of yourself and expressing the love that you have for yourself, which is such an important foundation to our happiness and our success in every other aspect of our life. So this is creating a foundation from the very first thing that you do in the morning to make sure that you have a connection with yourself before you start to give out to the rest of the world, making sure that you take really good care of yourself. So making sure that the body is clean, and then also making sure that the thoughts are clean, trying to watch your thought patterns, making sure that negativity and things that will put you into a downward spiral don't start to creep into your thought process. It's important always to practice this process of thought editing and observation of your thoughts, always being the observer of the way that your brain is working, the way that your thoughts are unfolding, the thoughts that might trigger a physical response in you. So you know when you start to think about something that you're angry about, that you will start to have this physical reaction to that anger. So we would use our practice as a way to cleanse ourselves of that anger so that our thought process can be more pure. Our actions, of course, are the result of our thoughts. Everything that we think eventually will pour out in our speech, in our behavior, in our decisions. So this process of monitoring our thoughts is going to have an impact on our actions. Now, purity of environment. This is important in terms of the environment that you live in has a huge impact on even your thought process. I know for me, if I'm at work and my workspace is really messy, it puts me in a state of feeling off balance. It makes me feel more frazzled because I have to search for things. Whereas when I take some time and organize things and put them where I need them to be and create some space around my work area so I don't feel like I'm being closed in, then the work that you do is going to be more effective. It's going to be a higher quality because the environment that you're in is conducive to that. Your home environment is the same thing. You want to keep your home free of clutter, free of things that will bring about that feeling of the monkey mind, basically, having your mind jump from task to task. And that's a tricky thing, especially if you practice at home. If you're doing your yoga practice at home, it can be very difficult not to get pulled away by things in your household because You'll have bills sitting out on the table. You'll have something on the computer that you need to do, maybe answer emails. So in order to roll out your yoga mat and do your practice for an hour or whatever you have set aside without getting distracted and leaving and going to handle the bills or going to answer your emails or playing with your phone, you want to try to set up the environment so that it's conducive to that. If you have that space and that simplicity in your environment, it will be much easier for you to get yourself into the mental state of being able to do your yoga practice. And once you're into that mental state, you're more likely to make a decision to actually roll out your mat and do your practice for the day, which in itself is such an important aspect of self-care for the body. We had talked about previously treating your body as your temple and making sure that you take really good care of your temple, because once this temple falls apart, your soul has nowhere else to live. So it would be the end of this experience. By practicing Saucha and taking really good care of our temple and our body, we ensure that the quality of experience that we have during this life is going to be at the highest level possible. We're going to be able to have the greatest interaction with the things around us. And we're going to enjoy it more because our mind is going to be clearer. We're not going to be so distracted. We can really experience everything that's unfolding in front of us. So the asana, the hatha practice that we do, is to purify our body. And a hot practice is actually good for this. I don't tend to do Bikram or some of the traditional hot practices like that, but in a warm room or even a warm environment, it's been pretty hot out lately, just doing a practice outside in the summer in the heat is going to help you to sweat and have that detoxification process that you're going for with this, to really just let things go. Pranayama is what we use to cleanse our energy. So prana being the upward lifting vital energy that we draw into ourselves when we do a yoga practice through our breathing. The practice of pranayama in this instance we're going to use as an open mouth ha breath, a really strong exhale from deep down in the pelvis and the lower belly. And that's a really cleansing breath, but it also wakes you up and creates a stronger sense of energy. If you're feeling tired, it's especially good. So that strong breath is going to purify your energy. And if you think about the energy channel that we have in the body, the Shoshona that goes right through the center, or the line that the chakras follow, doing that ha breath from a space of the base of the pelvis moving up is going to create a movement pattern and break up anywhere that you have stagnant energy. So anywhere that you feel stuck, it's going to break that up and create movement. So it's really effective with that. And then meditation is what we use to clarify our mind, to create that cleansing process of the thoughts, so that we can have thoughts that are going to create pure actions, that are going to create a pure environment around us, and that are ultimately going to shape the outcome of our life, of where we're going with this whole experience. So it's an important process to make sure that we start out having the thought process right and clean before we worry about the other things. Now I started to touch on this with the morning routine, but the Dinacharya is an Ayurvedic principle of a morning ritual, and it's a morning cleansing ritual. You can pick whatever things you feel like you need, and it might be as simple as brushing your teeth, doing some oil pulling, maybe using a neti pot to clear out your sinuses, washing your face, and any other tasks that you feel like you need in the morning. But as you carry out those tasks and you're cleansing yourself, you're doing them in that way of total mindfulness and total awareness of self-care and self-love. So it's something that you're doing very first thing in the morning to take care of yourself, so that you have the best, the purest, the cleanest version of yourself to present to the world when you go about your tasks. Now in terms of diet, for following Saucha, to have this practice of cleanliness, we want to make sure that we're not eating foods that are dirty. It's this idea of clean eating, where we're eating fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, things that are whole foods. They're not processed. They don't have a lot of artificial dyes in them. They don't have artificial sweeteners in them. Things like that. Keeping your diet pure and mostly mild foods. If you feel like you're going through a cleanse process, it's a lot of clear water, of foods that are going to settle you, like ginger and things like that, rather than really spicy foods or things that are very heavy like cheeses or milks, things that would weigh you down and create stagnation. You're trying to go for really light, clean, spinach salads, things like that. That's a sattvic diet. And that diet is thought to have a very strong connection to your thought process. So if you're having trouble moving into that space of clarifying your thought process, try shifting your diet to a more sattvic diet and see if there is a shift in your thought pattern or the way that you behave during the day as a result of that. Now, the practice that we're going to do to work on our first Niyama, on Saucha, is a practice that's very warming. We're going to start out with some core work specifically to bring awareness to the space in our body where we know the Agni to live, our internal fire, our digestive fire. It's our fire that helps us to burn through emotions that we no longer need, helps us to burn through physical tension, it helps us to metabolize our food so that we have energy. So it's a warming practice based around the sun salutations, and it's going to incorporate some twisting in different positions. We're going to twist to wring out that space around our internal fire, and it's going to follow this process of ritual, of doing movements in a specific way with a really high level of mindfulness. Even the poses that maybe you tend to kind of phone in sometimes, down dog is usually one of those poses because it's a pose you do all the time. We do it very frequently in class. So your mind can tend to check out during that pose. But that's the time when you really want to draw in that aspect of creating a ritual, even from the mundane things that you do every day, like brush your teeth. That can be a ritual of self-care. Now the pranayama, like I said earlier, is going to be a ha breath, a really deep exhale that starts from the base of the pelvis and moves up to the throat and out through the mouth as a process of cleansing and clearing out the energy channels. And it has a very therapeutic effect. If I feel like I'm holding on to something or I'm stuck or I'm tired, that's my go-to breath in my practice. And I usually do some Kundalini Kriyas with a strong ha exhale. And then the other breath that I use is breath of fire, which is my go-to when I'm tired. If I feel like I don't have enough energy, breath of fire is a strong inhale and exhale where you pump the diaphragm forward and back and the belly forward and back to move the air in and out quickly. And that really brings up my energy level. So the mudra that we're going to use is Surya Mudra, and it's connection between the thumb and the ring finger. So the ring finger represents the sun aspect or the fire element, and we'll touch the end of the ring finger during our practice to increase our connection to that fire element. But if you feel like you're fiery enough, which you might be, you're going to touch your thumb to the base of the finger as a way to ground that fire element, because if we get too fiery, we burn ourselves out, we get frustrated, we get overworked, and we want to have a good balance in our fire element. Too much fire isn't good, too little fire isn't good. We're working on that middle ground, finding that balance through these practices. The mantra that I put into my playlist for this class is the Durga mantra, because that's a mantra of protection against negativity and against evil. So we want to make sure that once we have processed through all of this stuff and we've cleansed ourselves and let go of the physical weight and let go of the mental and emotional things that cling to us, that we are protected from gathering more of that with us. Now I'm wearing my Kundalini white for this practice just as a way to really settle my mind on that idea of purity and connecting to the energy that comes along with that. So I hope you'll join me for the Hatha practice that goes along with this yoga board. Thank you so much. Namaste.